Let's talk about extended side angle. All this week, the week of August 17th, 2026, I'm doing a series breaking down poses into their anatomy. And I got a request from a yoga teacher to take a look at this posture. So let's take a look at what's going on with extended side angle. So just to do a quick demo, we're talking about a lunge. So it's got kind of a lunge shape. And then the extended part is that this upper arm is reaching overhead. So let's take a look at the anatomy behind the pose. So first we have to go to what are the joint movements. So when we take a look at, let's look at this front hip. This front hip is moving into flexion and this hip is moving into extension, okay? I'm not gonna get into too much detail. I'm gonna speak to you from the point of view of this is just what's happening. All of the sort of behind the scenes as to how I get here, I cover inside my program. So here, this hip's moving into flexion, this hip's moving into extension. This knee is in flexion, this knee is in extension. And then we take the upper body and we're leaning the upper body over this leg, which is lateral flexion of the spine, lateral meaning to the side. And then we take this arm and we're bringing this arm up overhead. So there's a couple of joint actions here. This shoulder, even though it's moving in the frontal plane, it's going up and over the head, which is shoulder flexion, typically gone through the sagittal plane here. But it's also, and this is a little tricky, it's also externally rotating. It's a little easier to see it if I bring this arm down by my side. So here you can clearly see this is an open shoulder. This is externally rotated. But then when I take the arm and I move it through the frontal plane and I bring it into flexion and external rotation, that's the position of this shoulder. But keep in mind, the alignment of the pose, this is just baked into the posture, thousands of years of how people have been doing this, is that the upper body is over the leg. So as we laterally flex the spine, the upper body stays in line with the upper thigh. So the body is moving through the frontal plane. This is that yoga cue as if you were between two panes of glass. And we see this alignment in some other postures like a triangle. So here, and then this shoulder is also externally rotated. And you want to watch for that because sometimes you'll see people internally rotate that shoulder. And typically the reason for that is because they lean too much into this front leg. So the most common misalignment is of the upper body, leaning too far forward. So if I do it a little more facing you, you'll see, so something like this. And you'll see also what's happening here. So now this hip is internally rotating. So the corrective cue here is to tuck the right sitting bone under and open that front hip. And that'll get the correction through the hip. But then here, roll the upper shoulder open and take the upper arm over the ear. Once you tell them upper arm over the ear, you're bringing them into that external rotation. Now, what are the external rotators of the shoulder? And why do so many people fall into internal rotation? Well, the reason for this is that the internal rotators tend to be tight because we are in internal rotation so much. The external rotators tend to be weak because we're not doing a lot of external rotation, therefore not concentrically or actively contracting those muscles. The external rotators are on the posterior shoulder. They connect the scapula to the humerus. They're muscles like the infraspinatus and the teres minor. So that covers the anatomical movements, some of the anatomy. Of course, we don't have time here to cover everything, and some of the corrective cues. Keep in mind, if this kind of review of postures is interesting to you, and actually more than interesting, if you want to be the kind of teacher who really understands this so you can give clearer cues and help your students who are out of alignment in these poses, you'd be a perfect person for my Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program, and the link is in my bio.